Alright, maybe you don't want your clock clean. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you for a review of the absolutely... I don't know, I don't hate this movie. A lot of people might hate this movie. So, I was going to say, I'm so used to saying this about sequels, I was kind of going to say absolutely abysmal. But I don't think it is absolutely abysmal. I just don't think it's as obviously as great as the original movie. I'm coming at you to review Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes, Part 2, Daylight Savings Time. I'm just kidding, that's not a part of the title, but it might as well be. Now, I just, after watching Hills Have Eyes, the fantastic new Blu-ray that just came out and that I just got recently, obviously I knew I was going to review it, and obviously being an anal bastard, I can't review Hills Have Eyes without reviewing Hills Have Eyes Part 2. I can, however, review these 1 and 2 movies without reviewing the remake and its sequel, so I'm sorry to say, I'm not going to, or at least not now, review the remake and the sequel to the remake of Hills Have Eyes. Maybe, if I get enough comments or interest from people, maybe I can do it later on, but I'm not going to do it right now. So, as I think I said in my Hills Have Eyes review, I think I rented both of these movies at the same time. I don't know if I watched them back to back, maybe not. Regardless, I saw Hills Have Eyes 2 pretty soon after having seen Hills Have Eyes on VHS. And I think I liked it a lot. I think I liked it more when I was a teenager, like 15. That's when I saw these movies than I did the original. And having rewatched it, I can understand why. Because Hills Have Eyes Part 2 is much more accessible and much more kind of like mainstream. And it is very much like this is kind of like the mid-'80s or whatever, I think. So it's very much, especially with Harry Manfredini's score, which is fantastic, by the way. It's very much like a Friday the 13th, version of Hills Have Eyes. It's not as serious by any means. It's the exact same kind of, it's the exact same formula as Friday the 13th. As a matter of fact, Wes Craven may not have done a movie that is more like a Friday the 13th movie than Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Obviously, it was probably just done, he probably just reluctantly did it just for, money. He was probably offered money to, who knows, maybe a decent amount of money to do this. From what I know about this movie was done before Nightmare on Elm Street, but didn't come out until after, if memory serves, or if my my research is correct. That's what happened. First off the bat, like I've already mentioned, Harry Manfredini of Friday the 13th fame does the score for this, and he probably did it right around the time he did the score for the new Friday the 13th 5, The New Beginning, because it sounds a lot like that. As a matter of fact, it could just be outtakes from that score or whatever. It's kind of funny to see, the flashbacks from the original movie with new Harry Manfredini score and stuff like that. Regardless, the score for this movie is Harry Manfredini at his prime, mid-'80s. That's a huge thing about this movie that I actually really like, is the score, and actually the love theme for Cass and whatever, the guy who would end up being in Friday the 13th Part 7, is actually really, really kind of pretty, which we don't hear it enough. I think we just hear it a little bit at the beginning when Cass is introduced, and then at the very end or something like that. But the love theme for this movie is really, really, really great, and should be in it a lot more. But the music, I can't overstate that enough. I'm obviously a huge fan of Harry Manfredini's work in the Friday the 13th series, and I love his work in this movie. Like I said, it's like mid-'80s, so he's at his prime, doing what he does best, and absolutely love the music. As I've already said, Hills Have Eyes Part 2 is much more accessible. It's not as hard to watch, or hard to watch at all, as the first one. The first one's got extremely realistic and terrifying and harrowing, yes, I can't say that word, well, I can, it's just hard to do, harrowing moments and scenes that took place in the original. This is more, like I say, a Friday the 13th version of a Hills Have Eyes movie. So it's more like, where Hills Have Eyes, when shit hits the fan and it's all violent and stuff, it's not fun. And that, I don't know how, it must be really hard. I don't know how, when movies do that, how they achieve that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre for me isn't like that. It's like, I don't know, like this movie is much more. I mean, the original Hills Have Eyes is when the shit hits the fan and everything's all people are being killed and shot in the trailer and stuff. It's just so grisly and so realistic that I don't know how that's even achieved, you know. But yeah, so the violence in this movie is, like I say, I've said over and over already, much more mainstream, much more accessible, you know, kind of more Tom Savini-ish gore, like when the black girl, who's really cute, gets her throat slit. It's just like, you know, 1980s slasher movie gore, you know. Another thing I actually like about this movie quite a bit is the characters. I mean, it's a whole busload of these like these motorbike, you know, motocross, whatever the hell you want to call them, dirt bike enthusiasts who actually are, you know, in the movie made this super fuel, and you know they want to get this super fuel sold and kick back and race the rest of our lives. Now that's bad. Of course, you got, unfortunately, you know, kind of what would, you know, I don't know, is already obviously being done and what will continue to be done in movies, North American movies, the kind of the token black couple, but whatever. Unfortunately, unlike with so many other movies that I've commented on positively, with even Blair Witch and, you know, the most recent movie by the name of Blair Witch and, you know, Summer Party Massacre 3 and stuff, unfortunately, the black guy, not so much the girl, but the black guy in this movie is kind of the cliched, not gangster or anything, but he's got the black kind of accent, whatever. So what I was saying is I actually like the characters in this movie. I was really excited when I first saw it for the very first time when I was 15, and it was like the movie starts with a flashback at the end of the first one, and we actually see Bobby at the very beginning of the movie being, you know, interviewed by the shrink. I thought, of course, at the time I thought Bobby was going to be in the movie. Of course, the guy who plays Bobby in the first movie is in the beginning of this movie, but that's it. Actually, the woman who played Ruby in the first movie is a star main player in this movie as well. So, you know, reprising the role as of that character who has kind of since become, because she was a hero and helped. I forgot to mention that in the review from the first one, but Ruby, one of the kind of cannibal people who doesn't like Doug anymore, becomes a hero and kind of goes onto the, you know, the side of the, helps the family at the end of the first movie. So she has since, kind of in a ridiculous turn of events, even expressed by the actress who plays her in the commentary of the newly released Blu-ray of The Hills Have Eyes, is kind of very perplexed at why, you know, thought it was funny that, you know, her character and Bobby actually ended up getting married, which I don't think is necessarily said in The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. I guess maybe never. I don't know if that's even true. Maybe she just thinks they did. I don't know. But apparently, I don't know. She thinks they got married. When I watched the movie, well, actually, I think they kissed. So I guess, yeah, whatever. But anyway, so that, unfortunately, that's all the, you know, we just see Bobby like talking to a shrink and then like kind of panicking during a flashback, you know, later on the bus or something like that. But Bobby is not, you know, in the majority of the movie. Unfortunately, we introduce this new character, this blonde girl who's really hot by the name of Cass in the movie, and also her boyfriend is the guy who would end up being the guy in, you know, the hunker, you know, whatever you want to call him in Friday 13th Part 7, you know, the heroine's love interest in that movie, who I don't understand, you know, he would have been a fantastic Superman, you know, and he would go on to be in Subspecies, I think 2 and 3 or something like that as well, but I want to say his name's Kevin Blair, which would have been a fantastic Superman. He had that kind of, you know, Superman kind of chiseled face and stuff like that, but I like the characters, basically all the characters. I mean, there's this Cass and him, there's another white couple, then there's the black couple, and then there's this big guy, Hulk or whatever, and I don't know if I'm forgetting anyone. But long story short, I like the characters in this movie. I think, you know, them playing off each other is something that I think is entertaining and enjoyable, and something that I enjoyed from the very first time I saw it when I was 15. I like the characters. They're a part of this movie for me that makes this movie entertaining, along with the music. So on a positive note, I like the characters, if I hadn't said it already. In the commentary for the Hills, in the recently released Blu-ray of Hills Have Eyes, the commentary with the 4, recorded in 2016 with the 4 cast members, I think it was Michael Berryman, who of course is Pluto, who, you know, among other things, wasn't so keen on the, don't quote me, I think it was him who wasn't so keen on the whole motor, the dirt bike stuff and motocross or whatever the hell it is, part of the movie. I don't have a problem with it. Again, I think it makes the movie more accessible. I think, it was kind of probably a big thing at the time and ever since, and still is, and is probably, yeah, I mean, to me it makes sense, and it's a way to make the sequel different from the first movie. I mean, give them a reason for, going out in the desert, and that's kind of a cool reason, especially among, younger characters that, permeate this movie. The motorbike thing or the dirt bike thing isn't very heavily, isn't a huge part of the movie that takes up a very big chunk of the movie. It's kind of cool when Pluto steals a bike, although I don't know how the hell he knows how to operate one. It's obviously a fake thing that should just be overlooked because he's probably never seen a motorbike. Well, who knows? But regardless, Pluto gets, there's a chase where Pluto steals one of their motorcycles, and then two of them chase him, and there's this cool thing where it's like a trip line goes, and then like gets this guy in the neck and pulls him off the bike, where you can see the actual thing that pulls him off. But anyway, that's what's supposed to have happened. So I don't have a problem with the motorbike stuff. I think it's kind of a cool new element for the sequel. Another cool thing about the movie, which, I guess the good guys did at the end of part one, which is permeated so much in Wes Craven movies with these, homemade traps and all this kind of stuff, which I, of course, didn't mention about the end of the first movie, where they make this, like, noose lasso thing and put it on the desert floor in front of the mom's corpse, and then put it around, like, this wheel on the car, and they turn it on, and it, like, goes around and, swoops the Papa Jupiter off his feet and drags him and stuff like that. So very much with, like, that one and, the homemade traps of Last House on the Left, and would go on to be in Nightmare on Elm Street and all this stuff. There's, but this time the bad guys, the cannibals, have really cool traps set up in the desert and stuff like that. So that's an element of this movie that wasn't in the first movie, also making this kind of a little more mainstream and a little more fun and stuff like that. So the bad guys have all these, cannibal bad guys have all these traps and stuff set up for people who, who might find themselves in the woods, walking around or whatever for lunch break. But that's a cool element to me, is just the bad guys' traps and stuff. So that's another element I like. I can't really review this movie without mentioning the flashbacks. Yes, there are a lot of flashbacks, but I think they're done kind of well in an interesting way. They, by having the people that were involved in, I can't remember who all has a flashback. Obviously, but I think Bobby has at least two. We start the movie basically with a flashback of the end of part one. I think Bobby has basically two flashbacks. Obviously, then the character of Ruby has a flashback, and what's so famously one of the most famous things about this movie is Wes Craven was running out of characters to have flashbacks with. So yes, the dog has a flashback. The dog, there was two dogs, which I didn't mention in the first movie because I'm not a fan of, I don't like dogs. But there were two dogs, a Beauty and a Beast, and a male and a female dog, and Beauty gets killed, and so the Beast basically lives in, I don't know, it's probably not the same dog, whatever. The character dog of Beast is in this movie as well, and like I say, probably one of the most well-known or famous things about this movie is the fact that that dog in this movie has a flashback, because at the end of the first one he attacks Pluto and rips off his, rips apart his frickin' whatever it's called, Achilles heel tendon thing or whatever, and presumably, something I also didn't mention because that review was just going so long, is that presumably Pluto was also killed by Beast by just basically tearing out his jugular in that movie. Obviously, if you're going to do a sequel, you can't do a Hills Have Eyes sequel without Michael Berryman, very rightfully so. Obviously, there's no explanation, why he's alive or whatever. It doesn't need to be. It's a money grab sequel to a horror movie that did probably financially well. So whatever. So. When I rewatched this recently, I just fast forwarded through the flashbacks since I'd already seen them. But obviously, if you want to see scenes of the original Hills Have Eyes with Harry Manfredini music, you can do that with select stuff. Obviously, it's kind of the more, I don't know, event scenes or whatever, horrible scenes of the movie. with newly, written Harry Manfredini music at the time. So I still, having just rewatched it for the first time in quite a while, I got the kind of horrid, I can't remember DVD, I can't remember, I think it was Image who put the DVD out. It's pretty horrid, but I guess it gets the job done. It seems to me that this movie's on Blu-ray. I don't know, I'd be kind of interested in checking that out. I should go on blue-ray.com and see if it is on Blu-ray and what shape the Blu-ray's in. But regardless, I do have this on the Image DVD that came out, years and years ago or whatever. And I guess it gets the job done, whatever, but whatever. So at the end of the day, I'm not, I think we'll go 2.5 stars out of 4 stars for Hills Have Eyes Part 2. I got a soft spot in my heart for it. Like I say, when I first saw these two movies, I think as 15 years old, I think I watched, Part 2 more than I watched 1 because, let's face it, I mean, especially when the shit hits the fan and everything gets all nasty in the first one, it's not particularly enjoyable to watch, just like the horrible scenes in Last House on the Left. But Hills Have Eyes 2 is, like I say, it's the mainstream kind of more accessible horror where it's it's more just surface horror and it really doesn't, tear at your soul like the shit in, the first movie. So, feel free to let me know what you think of this movie. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Obviously, there's no right or wrong. You either like it or don't or whatever. But I don't hate it. Certainly would rather watch this than the remake or the sequel to the remake. So I think that'll pretty much do it for my review of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, Daylight Savings Time. The reason I say that, if you don't know, if you haven't seen the movie, is because, they're like, oh yeah, we'll be there soon. See, the whole point of this movie, which in closing, I didn't even say, is that, they're basically taking their motocross super fuel for their motorcycles that they've invented and want to sell to the big, companies, taking it with them on basically, I guess they're going to go race or something like that. So that's the reason they're going to the desert, is to go to a race meet or whatever, and, they end up having to take shortcut or whatever, of course, is the reason, and all the rocks and stuff bust open the frickin' underneath of the gas tank. They end up losing gas. Anyway, they're saying, oh, we're going to make it there with, some time to spare. And it's like the character is looking at the newspaper. It's like, shit! Don't forget to turn your clocks back, because today is daylight savings time. And it's just like that. As soon as I saw that, when I just recently watched it, I'm like, oh man, what a cool, whatever it is, extra part of the title, Hills Have Eyes Part 2, Daylight Savings Time. That'd just be so funny, but that's why I said that, because the characters, I don't know why they even put that in the movie, because it really has nothing to do with anything, really. It's like there's just this scene where they realize they're an hour later than they thought, and then they end up getting stranded anyway. It has nothing to do with anything. But anyway, I think that I've talked about this movie for enough, so thank you very much for that. We'll try this again. Thank you very much for watching my review of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Just when you thought it was safe to ride your dirt bikes in the desert, the bald man is back in Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Oh, I forgot to mention something that also Michael Berryman, I think, hated about this movie, which is understandably, I can understand, is the kind of Papa Jupiter's big brother's here shit. Oh, the Reaper! We kill people and throw them down mine shafts. Yeah, this big, just doofus guy with this just, Quasimodo frickin' makeup, and it's just like, oh no, you can't fool me like Papa Jupe. Oh no. So like this Reaper guy, it's so funny because it's like Papa Jupe's big brother's here, and it's like when the old guy who's basically Jupiter's dad in the first one gives the thing, he's like, he had a daughter so pretty cuddly, or whatever the line is, we couldn't believe, and another one on the way. And it's like, he never mentions, oh yeah, before we had her, we had his big brother. But that's so funny when they do that. It's kind of like Jason Goes to Hell and, Jason's sister. And, I don't think they saw the first one where she's like, Mrs. Voorhees is like, my only child, Jason. So now it's, it's so stupid. I don't know why they did the the Reaper thing. It's just so dumb. It's kind of like they had to have like a commander, like, with I can't remember what the name of, oh yeah, well, Papa Jupiter. I guess they had to have like a dad figure. Wes Craven felt they had to have that big head honcho for the sequel, and he's just barely in the movie, and he's like the stupidest one, and it's just Reaper. It's like better. Oh God, this Reaper's all built up, and then when you see him, he's like, he's just an idiot. But anyway, thank you very much for watching my review of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, and we'll catch you on the next one. The next review, that is. See ya.